Hello, everybody. This is a tutorial on how to do progress monitoring using Google Docs and Google Calendars. So I was in a discussion with one of my colleagues who runs a special education department in my building. And essentially, we were discussing that there are some problems with progress monitoring and that can sometimes be difficult, especially at the secondary level where special education teachers are tracking multiple students and general ed teachers are tracking multiple students with a large course load. So essentially, what we're doing is coming up with a solution. She would like to use Google Docs to have all of her progress monitoring listed and that she can share with the teachers. And I suggested that she add it to a Google Calendar feature that will allow her to set reminders for teachers with the embedded link so that the teachers can access the document through the calendar and also see in their actual calendar when they're doing their planning that progress monitoring is due for a specific student. So what I want to do right now is kind of show you how to set that up, or at least the way that I would set that up. So the first thing I would do is I would actually create a progress monitoring document. I've actually used my son's IEP to create this progress monitoring document. And it would seem a little overwhelming at first because teachers would think, oh my gosh, I have to take all of the information from a student's IEP and put it into a document. But you really don't. You just kind of have to use the snipping tool. So if I go down here and I go to my son's IEP, I can use a snipping tool to essentially just snip away at the material that I want to show up on the progress monitoring document. So I'm going to copy that to my clipboard. I'm going to go back to my document. I'm going to paste it here. And if you see the image shows up, the PDF image shows up, then I'm just going to hit enter and I'm going to actually insert a data table, just a one-by-one data table so that the teacher can then just go in and write their progress monitoring right into the document. So the next thing we're going to do is once we establish and create our document, we're going to go to the share features. And what I'd like to do is I would like to share it with everybody that's on my son's caseload. So I'm going to actually just put in some of my friends' emails, even though they're not part of it, but just for demonstration purposes. So I throw in what would essentially be some teachers' emails that would be responsible for doing the progress monitoring. And I go and I make sure that my settings are that they can edit. So they can actually go into the document, look at the goal, but they can also go into the document and input the monitoring, the progress monitoring that they've seen. So I'm going to send that invitation out to them. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to then create my Google Calendar. So there's a number of different ways you can organize your Google Calendar. For me, it seems to make sense that I would create a Google Calendar for each one of my students that I would be monitoring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on New Calendar. And I'm going to give the calendar my student's name. Some people may want to do initials, whatever makes sense to them. So I'm going to create that calendar. Then I'm going to go over to, if you look over here, Jake Woodard Progress Monitoring shows up as orange. So I'm going to click on that. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow me to share it. And then it's going to also allow me to set up notifications. So I'm going to add the same people that I added to the document. So all the teachers. So all the teachers that would have that student. And I would give them see all event details. So now they're getting information sent to them. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually set up notifications. So I'm going to add notifications. And what's great about this is what often happens is teachers recognize that progress monitoring is important, but they get overburdened by their workload. And essentially they have a difficult time keeping track of which students need what, when they need it, because most teachers have about 150 students and they might have maybe only 12 or 15 IEPs. So it can get kind of lost. Typically happens is special education teachers send out an email, but again, the email has become so overburdened with information that it's kind of lost its luster a little bit. So teachers look at this email and they'll be like, oh yeah, I have to do that. And then right on to the next thing. So what this is going to do is we're going to actually allow the teachers to have this reminder as part of their actual planning calendar. And we're going to give out notifications. And this is my favorite part about Google Calendar is I can go a week. So I can decide that I would like the teachers to be notified 1 week before progress monitoring is due, that the progress monitoring is due. And that gives them a heads up like, hey, this is happening, please gather your information. Then I can add another notification that says 3 days before. And then maybe a final notification 1 day before. I don't know what happened to my 1 week, so I'm going to put that back in. So 1 week, 1 day. Okay, so now we have 1 week, 1 day, 3 days. They'll get notifications. And essentially what it's going to do is when they're going to their calendars, like an activity, it would pop up that, hey, progress monitoring is due on this day. In addition to that, when they open their calendar, they'll actually see a color-coded spot for that student that the progress monitoring is due. So we add those notifications. It says notification settings are saved. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually go into the calendar and we're going to create an event. So if I look at my progress monitoring, the first one is a math goal and it's got to be done quarterly. So now I'm going to actually go into the calendar and set up a quarterly reminder. So for me, the first quarter probably is going to end somewhere around the end of, let's say the beginning of November. So I'm going to say the 9th. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my event on the 9th. Which I can go back. Let me show you how to do it. So I click on the 9th, and then I'm going to create my event, and I'm going to say Jake Woodard, progress monitoring. And I just need to make sure that I put it in the Jake Woodard progress monitoring folder. I hit save. And now when they open up their calendar, they'll actually see on their calendar that on Friday, Jake Woodard's progress monitoring is due. And essentially what I would do is I would go through all of the progress monitoring dates and make sure it's there. Now, on my son's IEP, it's just quarterly. All of his things are quarterly. So I only have to do that 4 times in the calendar in order for the teachers to get the notification. But the cool thing is that because we set it a week, on Friday the 2nd, they're going to get a reminder. We set it 3 days in advance. On the 6th, they're going to get a reminder. And then on the 8th, they'll also get a reminder that will pop up. So that's essentially how you do the calendar. The last thing that I want to do is I just want to show you one more really cool trick. And that is to share the link. So I'm going to copy the link. And when I go back, I'm going to click on this. And I'm going to actually edit the link. And I'm going to insert the link. So now when my colleague clicks on this or the event pops up, they're going to have the link. So they're not going to have to go back to the email that you sent them with the Google Doc, or they're not going to have to go into their drive where it might be saved. They can just click on that link and be brought right to the actual document, to which they can then go in and write it. And then you, as the IEP custodial head of the IEP information gathering team, you would essentially just be able to wait for the information to be inputted into the document. Well, I hope that helps. I hope that helps in the war of progress monitoring. And if you have any ideas of a different way to organize the calendar or the document, I would love to hear it from you. All right. Good luck.